Hey guys, today I'm filming the what's on my iPod Touch 4th generation. So yeah, it's obviously cracked. So yeah, and the case I have on it is a Nintendo case. So I'll link that down below, as well as the home button sticker, which is like a zebra. So yeah, let's get on to my apps and such. So that's how my background looks like. It's a picture of me and my main, and up here it covers the battery life, because there's like that gray thing. When I cracked my screen, that appeared, so probably something bad happened to it, obviously. And it has that little bubble thing that basically has the voice control home and favorite. This is basically your home button in case it breaks. And if you click device, you have like the lock screen, so it basically turns it off. And the rotation of your screen, volume, screenshot, multitasking, and shake. And it's currently 10:24, Saturday, October 19th. So let's get into it. So my background is basically like chevron. And yeah, I'm gonna start off with the second page because I have like less apps, I guess. So I have Facebook, Facebook Messenger, Text Plus, Ask FM, which is personal. So that's my Facebook, and Text Plus is personal because that's my number. I have Vine, which I don't go on anymore, but I sort of go on it when I'm bored, but that's personal. A-Chex is basically this playlist app. I can find radios, and people have like little playlists that you can listen to. I have iTube, which is like YouTube but better, because at school we can't go on YouTube, so I just use iTube. WeHard is like Tumblr, and Pixar Express is my photo editing app. It's better than ViscoCam. It has more effects, and right now it's temporarily free, so go get it. So yeah. I have like this decor app because I use the code COPA for at least 2 apps, and yeah. Then I just have Newsstand, which is pretty boring. So out here I have camera, photos, aperture settings, because I cannot live without those apps. Then I have clock because I use it for my alarm, or else I don't wake up. And I have 2 alarms because I like to sleep in for 10 minutes. Nope. Instagram family. I use calendar quite a lot now. It's getting quite addicting, I don't know why. Music. I have songs. And I just have Safari, and then, like I said, my 2 apps are Cutify with this app called CocoPa. I'll show you guys how to do that in a different video, but I just have Pandora and Instagram. And then I have like my photo apps, which just take a good look at that, and I'll show you guys how I edit my Instagram photos in a different video, but not in this video because that's just going to be too much time consuming. But those are it. And I like Retrica, ViscoCam, and SquareReady. Then I have my videos, which I have FaceTime, videos, Uvu, Skype, Video Star, Splice, and SquareReady for videos, which is basically to fit a video into Instagram without it being like a square. And Splice is my video editor. Video Star is like this app where you can make a music video with your music. Skype and Uvu and FaceTime are video chatting, and videos is basically you download videos from the iTunes store and you can watch them. In education, I have CNN because they give you like cool notifications on the news, which is cool. And I have Translate, the Weather Channel, because they give you notifications on the disasters that there is. Mathway gives you like homework answers. And Translate, Dictionary, Duolingo, lets you learn languages. And games, I don't really have games, but those are my games. I really like A Hungry Mouse and Fruit Ninja. Utilities, I have like this T20, which is like a countdown. I have a countdown for my birthday and for Christmas. And then I have like the default apps, and I have emoji, characters, tags for likes, CocoPa, which is how you use the icons. Battery saver, which when you're charging your phone and it's up to charge, it stops charging because I like to charge it overnight. And track ground lets you know who unfollows you. Then down here I have Messages, Mail, Kik, and Snapchat, which are personal, and that's basically everything that's on my phone. I'll be filming a Cocoba tutorial and how I edit my Instagram photos, so stay tuned for that. Oh, and a case collection. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Hi guys, what's up? Welcome. I am Nayeli, and this is my first video, and I'm filming a really fun haircut. We should take a walk someday, dream about what we could have been. So to start off with, I currently have the white iPod size in white and pink, and I used to have a black iPod 4. As you can see, there's really badly cracked. And well, this cracked, and now it doesn't turn on, and I'm pretty sure the home button doesn't work anymore. The last time I used it, it did work, but I feel it's weird now, if that makes any sense, so I don't think it works anymore. So I was lucky enough to be able to purchase a newer iPod, so yeah, so let's just get started. So when you turn my iPod on, my screensaver is a collage of me and my best friend. The app I used for this collage is known as Paypluk. So when you unlock it, I do have a password because I feel like it's kind of nice to have a password on your phone. So on the first page of apps, I just tap camera, photos, app store settings, weather, clocks, mail, Safari, and music. All of these apps I'm not going to be explaining because these apps come with the iPod and they're pretty self-explanatory. Then I have Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. My Facebook is for friends and family only. My Instagram is public for you guys to follow me on. I'm sorry. This is my little Instagram username. It's Queen Nayeli, just like that one. And this is basically how my profile looks. YouTube is for self-explanatory reasons. I like to watch YouTube videos in my spare time when I'm not playing Doodle Jump or when I'm not on Instagram. My Twitter, I made this a couple of days ago, maybe 2 or 1 day ago. So if you guys want to follow me on there, it's Queen Nayeli as well, but with 2 eyes at the end because one eye was taken apparently. Then I have 2 folders. I have the apps folder and the photo folder. On the apps folder, I have all of these Apple apps I don't use, like FaceTime, Messages, Contacts, Notes, My Days Calendar, Maps, Newsstand, Passbook, Videos, iTunes Store, Game Center, Slack, Calculator, and Voice Memos. I never use these apps, so I don't see why I should have them out with the rest of the apps. So then I have my photo apps, which I have Retrica, Camel Pro, TimerCam, ViscoCam, Fonto, Square Ready, Reflection, Splice, Photo Collage, Pic Collage, and Paybook. If you guys want to see how I edit my Instagram pictures, comment below. But Retrica and Camera Pro are basically these apps where when you want to take a picture, you can already take pictures with filters, so no need to add them afterwards. TimerCam is obviously a timer cam. ViscoCam, I like this app a lot for my filters because it has some pretty nice filters, but it also has some really crappy ones. So you basically import the picture that you want, and you can add whatever filter you want. Like let's say I want to add this black and white filter, I can adjust it as well by going down there and hitting that little tool, and you can add the exposure as low as you want or as high as you want, and you can edit the temperature, you can rotate it, and the contrast and all that good stuff. So that's why I like ViscoCam a lot. Then I have Fonto, which is to add text to your pictures. Square Ready gives you those little borders on your pictures. I don't know if you guys seen them around before. Reflection is a mirroring app, like it makes two of you, you know what I mean, right? I hope you guys do. Splice is my video editing app. Photo Collage is to add a bunch of pictures together. And what I like is, you know those little white borders that separate the pictures? With this app, you can adjust those to not be there, which I like. And for Pic Collage and Paybook, I can actually show you guys an example. So this is an example of what you can do with Pic Collage. And for Paybook, it's basically the same thing, just that has different stickers, and you can actually download more stickers, which is kind of a pain in the butt because this app is always so slow. But this is basically what you can do. So that is it for my first page of apps, and on the dock here are kind of like my interacting with people apps. I have Kik, Messenger, and Snapchat. My Kik is personal because I only like to Kik my friends, and my Messenger is for Facebook. It's basically just my messages, and it is personal because Facebook is for family and friends, and that is linked to my Facebook. So my Snapchat is not personal because I would love to receive Snapchat from you guys. My Snapchat is OSnap It's Nayeli. So you guys should Snapchat me if you guys want. On the second page of apps, I basically have all the apps I have downloaded. I have my utilities, Doodle Jump, Candy Crush, Flora Unicorn 2, Flappy Bird, Vine, Ask.fm, Skype, Pandora, iTunes, and 8Tracks. My utilities folder is basically full of apps that aren't really used on a daily basis and are kind of for entertainment or things like that. I have Photo Vault, Tags for Likes, Trackgram, Characters, FML, iFunny, Shelf WP, and Quote. My Photo Vault is basically to store pictures I don't want to be seen in my camera roll. Tags for Likes is a bunch of hashtags that if you have a Instagram that is not on private, you can use these hashtags either on the caption or as a comment once you post your picture, and this will get to you more likes or even sometimes followers. Trackgram lets me know who unfollows me, who I'm not following back, who's not following me back, my new followers, and if I pay to unlock some of the features, I can get to know who my biggest fans are, my favorite people, my least favorite people, and my ghost followers, but that's kind of like a waste of money on my opinion. So let's think to see if somebody unfollowed me. Nope, nobody has unfollowed me. And if you see who is not following me back, by just dragging that like that, you can unfollow them. So yeah. Characters, I don't know if you guys have seen these little like black and white symbols around Instagram, but I surely have. And that's basically what this app is. And I'm sorry that most of my apps have annoying commercials, but they are free. So that's what I'm talking about. That's basically what this app does. FML is basically where you read some statuses that people can post about how miserable their day was. And it's actually really funny if you're having like a really bad day. So I'm actually going to read one. So let's hope this isn't inappropriate. So it says, today was a single misstep. I managed to send myself and several others tumbling down a stairwell at work. An ambulance ended up having to be called for one lady. Okay, that wasn't really that funny. But things like that, you know? Then I have the iFunny app, which I honestly don't really like the update. It's kind of like you have to have an account to like something or something like that. I don't know if it's always been like that, but I honestly don't really like iFunny. This is where I got my wallpaper from. It is so beautiful. Like, it's not beautiful, but it's like really handy. I don't know why I said that weird, but that is basically my wallpaper. It's right there, as you can see. So yeah. Then I have quotes, which I honestly do not like this app because of the random advertisements that pop up. Like a video advertisement popped up while I was looking at my pictures, which was so annoying, but it has nice quotes actually, though. My favorite game right now is Doodle Jump, and I can't really play it because I am holding my camera with one hand, and we'll see how this is, though. So, basically do this, and it's really fun to me. This is such a great time killer, and it's so fun, so, yeah. Candy Crush, okay. Candy Crush here, I don't really use. I barely got it, and my arms are really hurting because I am holding the camera, and my elbow is like against the bed, but I really hope I do not get copyright, because that would suck, but I know how to play Candy Crush. Basically just like do that, and questions, you guys can do so. This is basically an app where you can ask people questions. That is my username, so go ahead and ask some questions. That was really weird, and I promise I'll never do that again. Then I have Skype, which is for friends and family, and then I have my music app, which consists of Pandora. I'm sorry if I'm shaky, by the way. Yeah, okay then. iTube, which is YouTube, but you can have playlists of audio or music, and you can listen to your playlist or whatever you're listening to on YouTube without being on this app. So if I want to listen to, let's say, The Weeknd, Drunken Love, because I like that song. So let's say I want to listen to The Weeknd. That song can be playing, and I could be on a different app, like if it. So basically works as your music album. So. And that's basically that. Then I have 8 tracks, which is Pandora basically, but you can find like really rad remixes. So let's say you want some country, I don't know, and you're feeling sad, you can find any playlist, and basically a song will play. So yeah, that's basically that. This is basically all that is on my iPod. There's not that many apps, and I'm really sorry if I was shaky. So that was basically all of my apps on my iPod, and I'm really sorry if I was shaky throughout this video. My hand is really hurting because I was leaning against my bed. And yeah, if you guys have any app requests, comment, not app requests, any video requests, comment below. If you guys have any app ideas that you like and want me to let you know, comment below. And if you guys want to see how I edit my Instagram pictures, comment below. Don't forget to subscribe for new videos. I will try to upload at least once a week or maybe even twice a week. And this took me forever to film because it is really hard to get your camera to focus really nice and to just have really nice video quality, you know? So yeah, thank you guys for watching and have a good day.
All right. Apparently, so not so many of you speak Danish. I apologize for the American accent. I was born in the United States. I can't help it. It just happened. But for the past 35 years, I've lived in Copenhagen, which is where we have our company. And we have branch offices in Central and Southern and Eastern Europe because we see these as being incredibly exciting and innovative countries. And Romania in particular is interesting for a variety of historical reasons that I'll get to. So before I offend anyone else, how many of you are Romanian? Okay. How many of you are not Romanian but came from a former socialist country? Okay. So there's some Poles. Where are you from, sir? Ukraine. The Ukraine, okay. And Moldova. All right. Azerbaijan. Excellent. Okay, thank you. I now don't take offense by any of this, but the Romanians have a tremendous advantage. And I'll explain why. Now, the next question is, how long do I have? Because we're not quite on schedule here. When do you want me off? This is a very dangerous thing, Dan, because what happens is, like, after 10 minutes, people start playing Angry Birds, and, you know, that's the end of it. By the way, all you Angry Birds players, does anybody work on this damned application? Can you figure out how to turn off the goddamn sound in Android? I can't play it at meetings because you start it up and it goes... That's a problem that needs to be solved. Right, well, we'll go on for about half an hour, 40 minutes here. What I want to talk about is innovation. Everybody talks about innovation, and when you look for a definition of innovation, or you ask people what innovation is, they can't tell you. And I find that rather unusual. In my country, Denmark, there is not a company that doesn't have innovation as a keyword. And yet nobody can define innovation. So I'm not going to show you mobile applications this morning. I'm not going to pretend to know things about technology that I don't. But I do know a little bit about what innovation is, and more importantly, what it isn't. And I like to share that with you, and I think that if you think about some of the things that I present here, your work will ultimately be better. So this is not a technical talk, but I hope you'll enjoy it anyway. This is the dictionary definition of innovation. The introduction of something new, a new idea, method, or device. And this is a shitty definition. This is what people think it is, but it isn't. There are lots of things that are new, but they're not necessarily innovative. Now, the other side of the coin is best practice. Best practice is a word that was coined by Tom Peters back in the 1980s. He wrote a book called In Search of Excellence. And his idea was, well, can we go out and look at companies, and in his case, primarily US-based companies, IBM, Xerox, Kodak, others, who were doing a good job, and see, are there commonalities that run across these different companies? Are there things that they're doing at IBM that resemble things that they're also doing at Xerox? Can we define best practices? Now again, I said the opposite side of the coin, because you think, oh, well, you know, we're going to be innovative and we're going to be new and we're going to be different, or we're going to do what everyone else is doing, and that must be something very different. And the truth is, they're part of a continuum, and I'm going to show you how that works. First, though, I want to tell you there are three really bad reasons to innovate. The first one is just to differentiate your product or service. Oh, well, we're going to do it differently. We're going to turn it green instead of blue. Everyone else is blue, we're going to be green. Or to be original, or just to satisfy your own ego. A lot of designers do this. I'm being creative here. I'd like to introduce you to the Octo Auto. This is not Photoshop. This is an actual automobile that somebody built in 1912. And the idea was that if it had 8 wheels, it would ride smoother. They also claimed that it would save gas, and there were all kinds of other rather odd claims. Marketing is nothing that was invented last year. Now, the idea with the 8 wheels, though, was that this is the way the Pullman trains looked at the time. They had what are called double bogies, these wheels that the trains ride on. And of course, trains ride very smoothly. So if we put 8 tires on a car, obviously it will... Wrong? Why wrong? You're absolutely moving in the right direction, but I'll tell you, the friction, the mechanical friction is only part of the story. Have you ever seen roads from 1912? The one thing I can say with absolute certainty about the Octo Auto is it took twice as long to dig out of the mud. The cars don't run on rails. This is a stupid innovation at a time when people were trying to figure out how do we differentiate our product. All kinds of car manufacturers, nobody really knew which way the industry was going, and the curious thing is, this is exactly what is happening in mobile. We're kind of at the same stage of development. We don't really know what the future is going to bring to us. So we sometimes invent some pretty screwy things. The Octo Auto. Pushing the envelope is not necessarily innovation. The Japanese have a phrase, shindugu, which means useless innovation. These are the sushi shades. I kid you not. If the sushi restaurant has run out of clean chopsticks, you can take the earpieces off of your eyeglasses, your sunglasses, and use them as chopsticks. So there you go. There you've got a new idea. But is this innovation? No. Just being original is not necessarily innovative. Satisfying your own ego is not innovation. Let me show you how this works. Experimentation, this is Marconi. Back in the 1890s, he was working on the concept of radiotelegraphy. So there's a period of experimentation, trial, error, failure, success, and this eventually leads to an invention. And in this case, it was radiotelegraphy, for which he won the Nobel Prize in 1909. And of course, those of us who are interested in Southern and Central and Eastern Europe know that in fact it was Nikola Tesla who invented this, but we won't get into that. This, though, is the innovation. Does anyone know what this is a picture of? I'll put a date on it. Any guesses? Okay, a little more help. What? Well, it's a Radio Shack on a ship. Do you know what the ship is? The Titanic, exactly. And on the 15th of April, 1912, it was the first ship in the world to use the Marconi apparatus to send an SOS signal. And this is a copy of the original message. And as a result, they saved 802 lives that night, people who would have drowned in the Atlantic had it not been for this invention, for this innovation. Putting the thing on a ship. Just inventing radiotelegraphy in itself is not the innovation. We hear this from Brussels all the time. Oh, we have to be more innovative, but Brussels doesn't know shit about innovation. They talk about it. They talk about starting innovation centers. For God's sakes, innovation centers can provide best practices, but they can't build innovation. Doesn't work that way. There's only one reason to innovate, and this is the key message I have for you. You have got to solve a problem. Now, it may be a latent problem in the minds of the people that you're dealing with, but you have got to solve a problem. And my first law of innovation is quite simply, if you don't solve a problem, you're going to create one. Let me show you an example. This is mouthwash. These are a couple of Danish brands, Denevit and Zendium. And the Zendium people decided that they needed to differentiate their product. So they invented a dosage mechanism. So you actually have to put the bottle down and squeeze it. This is odd. Why is my video, hello? Right, so what happens here is that you have to squeeze the bottle and it fills up this cap, and then when you release the bottle it goes and takes the excess. And the next slide, which of course you won't be able to see either, is my dentist. This is a trained professional. Hey, there she is. Great. This is my dentist. Now this is a trained professional, so you would think that she knew something about mouthwash. Come on. There we go. Everywhere else in the world, you unscrew the cap, you pour some in. Is there anyone here from the Russian Federation? Okay, you're going to have to excuse me for a minute. Pretend you're not here. Put fingers in your ear. I presented this in Moscow last year. And I said, who the hell would you want to dose mouthwash? And I got this answer, well, in the Russian Federation it's very important because people, they drink mouthwash. I think, and I'm thinking to myself, for God's sakes, they have the best vodka in the world. What are people drinking mouthwash for? It's a completely screwball idea. The point is, though, that it's a stupid innovation. This is a company that is trying desperately, where did I do with my clicker? This is a company that's trying to differentiate a product that basically has no differentiating properties. This is a silly thing to do. They've created something that actually doesn't work very well. So, let me tell you, problems don't exist in isolation. Solutions have unintended consequences. I want to tell you a story about the British Army in the 1850s. Now, at that time, they had what were known as muzzle-loading muskets. And these are like tall rifles, okay? And what happens is you hold this thing up and you pour in some powder, and then you have a long rod and you tamp it down, and then you take out a mini ball and you put it in, and you put that down, and then you take out some cotton and you push that in and you tap it down so it doesn't roll out when you lift up the gun. So you lift up the musket, you cock the flint, and you fire. That's how it works. So that's a muzzle loading musket. Now, why would you ever want to fire a second bullet on a field of battle? Because you missed. And what is the consequence of your having missed? Excuse me? Because somebody's shooting back at you, exactly. So what is the last thing you want to be doing on the field of battle? And that's standing up and pouring in your powder. And so the British Army, in all their wisdom, went to the Lee Enfield Rifle Company and said, look, we need what is known as a breech-loading rifle, where everything sort of happens back there where you cock the flint. Good idea. Smart people, these Lee Enfield people. They pre-measured the black powder in greased packets, so you just took it up, put it in your mouth, tore it off, poured it in, put it in a mini ball, cocked, fired, and you could do all of this while you're lying down. That's pretty cool. They solved the technological problem. But there are also social and political consequences of any innovation, and particularly in our arena with mobile. Because we see in emerging markets, people don't really want PCs. They want to do things through telephones. So, let's go back to Britain. Who were the English fighting against and alongside in the 1850s? Hindus and Muslims. They're their allies, but they're also the people they're fighting against in the Middle East, in India, the whole subcontinent. How do you think the Lee Enfield people greased those small packets of powder? With pig fat. What is the one thing you don't want anywhere near your mouth if you're religious? Fat from a cow or a pig. The British almost lost the jewel in the crown 100 years before Gandhi came along. So remember, anything that you do in terms of innovation is going to have three consequences. There will be a technological consequence, a social consequence, and a political consequence. And this applies to everything from Angry Birds to whatever else you're working on. What did I do with my clicker? There it is. This is from the Canary Islands. It's the main town, I think it's called Santa Cruz, on the island of La Palma in the lower Canary Islands. And the town fathers have decided, bye-bye. See, this happens all the time. I warned you. The town fathers decided that they were going to be wheelchair accessible. So throughout the city, you see these wheelchair ramps. I've never been to a city that has as many wheelchair ramps as Santa Cruz. Now let's just look at the rest of this picture for a minute. What are they thinking? Absolutely bizarre. But the picture is interesting because it has the three main elements of what make up innovation or our work. We have people and we have processes of some sort. And in between, we've got technologies that will hopefully help people get through this process. And it's our job to try and arrange these things in some kind of a sensible way. This is Gus the cat. Gus the cat is a user. He uses cat food. And this is his cat food. This is from Whiskas, and it is lamb with peas. So Gus and I sat down, and we did some very serious user testing. And I gave him the food, and Gus commented on it. You laugh. This is his bowl afterwards. He shoves all the peas off to the side. Nobody ever bothered to ask a cat if they like vegetables. Generally, they don't. The peas are in there because I'm the cat owner and I'm supposed to be wildly excited that something that looks edible to me would also appeal to the cat. It doesn't work that way. So there are two ways you can look at things. You can look at user-centered design, where we have a tendency to have this research, innovation, design cycle, and we've got the users in the middle, and we look at them once, and we do a little research, and then we go back and ignore them for the rest of the time. But there's another fellow by the name of Christian Rohr who was at eBay for a while and then also at Nokia, and he talks about user-driven design, which I think is much more interesting, where you keep the users as part of the development process throughout. So they're not just people you look at once or observe once and talk to once and then go away and then maybe come back during beta testing, but people who you are involved with throughout. Unhappy customers are really very, very dangerous. Gus the cat is very dangerous, not because he buys the cat food, but because I do, and it was very expensive, and if he won't eat it, I will not buy it. It's a waste of my money. You know, in the old days, we used to say, okay, if people don't like, or if they like something, they will tell 3 people, on average. But in the service design industry, back in the 1980s, we had a lot of research that indicated, well, if people were unhappy, they'd tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They tell on the average 17 people. That's interesting. But you know what happens today? We have social media, so suddenly they're telling all kinds of different people. Happy customers tell 3 friends. Unhappy customers tell Google. It's very true. I mean, there's something called Dell Hell. Or how many of you are aware of Dell Hell? This is a guy who had bad experiences with the Dell Computer Company, and he started recording the conversations with the help desk, and he published these online. And suddenly, there were thousands of people who had had similarly bad experiences with Dell Computer. Dell has never really recovered from this. The products are good today. Their help desk is better. But still, Dell Hell slashed their market share and almost put them out of business. This is a very powerful medium. So invention can be accidental. Spill of a bottle of battery acid and Alexander Graham Bell discovers, oh my God, Dr. Watson, come here, I need you, and the microphone is born. That's an accident. But invention is always planned, or innovation is always planned. It has to be. This is a quote from C.C. Colton, and please note, he's selling this back in the 1820s. He said, we ought not to be anxious to encourage innovation. An old system has 2 advantages over a new one. It is established, and it is understood. I just switched from Microsoft Office 2003 to 2010, and I can still not figure out for the life of me how this shit works. I mean, I'm not a novice computer user, but it's a major step for me. When Mac went over to OS X, I had every Apple product from the Apple II through the Lisa to the, I don't know how many different Macs I had. When they got to OS X, I gave up and I went back to Windows. See, the innovators also break the rules. That's important, but there are different ways to do that. I want to show you another short video. This is, I wanted a DECT phone, a wireless phone that could also work with Skype, and I found this one, and I tried to buy one. So, hi there. All right, we're going to skip this. Anyway, it's going to come up with 3 error messages telling me that things are not working, telling me that I need to put things in my basket, or I need to remove things on the basket, or I need to click another button. It makes me feel very, very stupid, and it doesn't help me enjoy the product. It's a really, really bad customer service touch point. So the point is, the innovators may break the rules, but they also understand the rules. And this is a critical differentiation. This is the difference between innovation and idiocy, and there are an awful lot of idiotic things going on out there. I have another interface here. This is interesting. Navigational note. Click on the downward arrow in the upper left-hand corner to navigate from chapter to chapter, 3 chapters in all, and you've got all this really weird stuff, and you've got arrows there, and you've got arrows there. He said, for crying out, this is a website. For crying out loud, 16 years into the web, and we don't know how to do 3 layers of navigation? This is crazy. This is not innovation at all. Intuitive solutions do not need instructions. And I apologize to all the iPhone users, but when I got my first iPhone, I needed to read the instruction book. Intuition does not mean you can just play around with it until you finally figure out how it works, and it probably won't break in the meantime. But unfortunately, that's how a lot of interfaces are being designed these days. I love this, step-by-step instructions on accessing and using the Intuition Exploration Protocol. Oh, good Lord. If we put these on a continuum, you can see that intuition is on one side. That means that we kind of know what we're supposed to do. We have a door handle that signals push or pull. This is interesting because you actually have to push the door, but the handle is saying, pull me. Websites are kind of like that. You want people to learn things on one website or mobile app or whatever that they can also apply someplace else. Just think how nice airports are. All airports work in pretty much the same way. And the airplanes are out at gates, and we can look at the numbers, and they're Latin numbers. What would happen if you went and you checked in, and the woman behind the counter says, yes, and your plane is at Port Q? Well, we're very innovative here at wherever. I mean, you may think of them as gates, and the pilots call them stands. That's true. But we call them ports because we're innovative, and Q is the 17th letter of the English alphabet, so you may know this as gate 17, but we call it Port Q. Have a good journey. That doesn't work. We want to keep the instructions down to a minimum. There's a gap between what we know and what we need to know in order to accomplish our task, and our job is to make sure that the distance between these two things is as small as possible. That's where we get success. The greater that gap, the greater the chances are that things are not going to succeed. There's going to be a low barrier to entry and a high one. And the other thing is there are different kinds of innovations. And this is absolutely critical. There are incremental innovations and there are very disruptive innovations. Let me show you how this plays out. If we go to ancient Rome, we had runners that could get from one end of the empire to the other in about 3 days. The emperor would write a message. Somebody would run off, and 3 days later it would be at Hadrian's Wall in Scotland. So what did we do then? In the 1840s, 1850s, we started getting postal services, which is basically the same thing. We're giving our letter to a runner who is going to bring it someplace else. And then we got the fax. So the runner was this electronic thing that sent things through wires, and then it came back in the other end. These are all incremental innovations. The disruptive innovation was email. You say, well, no, email is kind of just like a better fax. No, what it does is allow us to collaborate on the same document. We could never do that before. So the whole idea that you really can have a virtual team is something that you can't do with a fax. And you can't do it with mail, and you can't do it with runners. So that is where we have a disruptive innovation. And disruptive is not necessarily bad. We just have to understand the technological, political, and social consequences of what we do. There's a lot of talk about return on investment. And the truth is, I think the way to look at it is that my problem is greater than the effort needed to learn how to use the system. That's really what it's all about. This is the Janko Prasini keyboard. It was actually used in a lot of harmonicas, but the idea was it was invented by Janko was a Hungarian, and Liszt was Franz Liszt was a Hungarian from Sopron, and his piano music, if you're musicians, is really very, very difficult to play. So the idea of the keyboard was to be able to make it easier for people with small hands to play very grandiose pieces. The problem is classically trained pianists didn't want to spend the time relearning everything that they had spent a lifetime learning. So this is not a good innovation. This is my granddaughter, and I'm not even going to push the button. But what happens is she's got this thing there. It's got one big green button, and when she lifts it up, it blows bubbles. She needed no instruction whatsoever. That was truly an intuitive interface. She knew what to do with this damn thing, and it's very cute. Best practice is not the same as tradition or habit. This is my high school computer club back in oh God, we were cute. I still have those glasses someplace. There's a continuum, and I think it starts with a period of invention, and then you have an upward turn of innovation, and then finally you end up with best practices. If we look in terms of usability, the things that we're doing today or the mistakes we're making today are very different than the mistakes we made 10 years ago. We've learned. There are best practices. Now, the problem is if we just keep doing the same old thing, it becomes habit. What we want to do is we want to build the next level of innovation on top of what we already know today. And we also have to watch out that we don't fall for fashion, because there are a lot of things that sort of look nice and are the way we design things now, but they're not necessarily intuitive, they're not necessarily good, they're not necessarily beneficial for our clients. Let me show you some websites. These are all from Denmark, but there are a zillion from Romania. I just figured I'd pick on my own country for a while. A row of tabs at the top, big stupid picture, and 3 things you can click on underneath. And here we've got from Maersk, we've got a row of tabs, a big useless picture, and some things you can click on underneath. And we've got a row of tabs, a big useless picture, and some things you can click on underneath. Are you starting to get the picture here? You know, this is the way sites look like all over the world right now. It's crazy. This is the royal family of Denmark. And this is the only site I can think of that can actually justify having a big picture there, because they have an older demographic. They're people who probably are in their 50s, 60s, not necessarily used to using computers. And it's very reassuring that, ooh, that's our queen. I came to the right site. This is nice. So that's sending out a good signal. But the truth is, how many of you are graphic designers? Oh, you were very slow in admitting that. All right, 2 of them. Hopefully your graphic design can move beyond this, because the truth is, if you're only looking in terms of making pretty skins, you can download this shit for $63 a pop from Dotster. Why are we designing this kind of stuff? Design in our world is function, not necessarily color. So what are the warning signs of fad and fashion? Well, first of all, you know, if only one local market is doing what you're doing, there may be a problem. Of course, if it's only being used by a single vertical industry, there may be a problem. And finally, if it looks like what you were doing last week, then you're not being particularly innovative. We've got to grow this industry. So why do we need communities of practice? How many of you have been on the website, on your phone, for this conference? Good. How many of you enjoyed that experience? I see no hands at all. Did you design it? No, I mean, I don't mean any offense to the conference organizers, but this is called Mobile Monday, and it's probably the worst site for Android I have ever seen in my life. We've got dark blue on black, which is like a really good color combination in the best of worlds. But it's not optimized for the phone in any way, shape, or form. I wanted to check it to find out when I was supposed to speak, how long a speaking slot did I have, and so on. It was very, very difficult for me to do. And although everybody wants to go out and design the next Angry Birds, if you want to really innovate something, start thinking in terms of responsive content. There are at least 3 other communities of practice right now: the interaction designers, the content strategists, and the information architects, who are desperate to figure out how can we repurpose information across a wide variety of platforms, from tablets to phones to big screens to smaller screens and so on. And these are things that we can certainly work on. This is an incredible opportunity for innovation. And the communities of practice are important because we can share ideas. Now let me just bore you very, very quickly with some Romanian history. And let me tell you why I think Romania has an absolutely unique position in the world today when it comes to innovation. There are 2 people that you can thank. And the first is the Emperor Trajan, who in 106 finally conquered Romania and took it away from the Dacians. He only held on to the country, or the Romans only held on to Romania, for about 150 years, but those were an incredibly important 150 years because it means you speak a Latin language. The Slavic languages are very, very difficult for Western Europe to understand. It's been a hindrance because of the way languages are taught in school. If you have a Latin language to begin with, the chances are you're going to have an easier time adopting to other languages in more mature communities, more mature countries. The other person I think you need to thank, and this is going to, I don't even know whether I dare say this, but I'm going to do it anyway. You need to thank Joseph Stalin, who in 1945 at the Yalta Conference made sure that he maintained a sphere of influence over Central and Eastern Europe. And what it's taught you, let me just pause for a minute. You know, if you talk to people in Western Europe, they say, oh, well, we go to Romania for outsourcing. It's great because they're great coders. They do exactly what they're told. They're really good at following rules. See, that's what happens when you live under communism. You learn how to follow the rules. That's why the programmers are great. Oh, but they're not creative. The hell you aren't. So back to Joseph Stalin. Stalin, Ceausescu, you know what it taught you guys? Yaroshevsky, I mean, we can go on with a lot of names. It taught you guys how to game the system. It taught you how to figure out how to get around whatever was getting in your way so that you could accomplish your task, so that you could solve your problem. And that means that you think better and more creatively than any other region in the world. I really think that you have a tremendous advantage here, and I'm not just, blowing smoke up your ass. I believe this. It's a very, very interesting situation, and although the socialist era was not necessarily good for Central and Eastern Europe, I think that there are things that we can look at in retrospect and say, okay, this is kind of interesting. Maybe we did get something out of this that we can use in a positive way now that we're growing a market economy. In terms of sharing, who invented the telephone? Are you sure? Did you know that there was another fellow by the name of Elisha Gray whose patent arrived 6 hours after Bell's patent arrived? Same year, same invention. But the interesting thing is, in 1860, Johann Philipp Reis in Germany also came up with the system. He just didn't build it. And if we go back to 1857, Antonio Meucci actually built a working microphone. If we go back to 1844, Innocenzo Manzetti actually described exactly how this could be done. The interesting thing is the Italians were very much at the forefront in terms of communication, and it's probably no accident that, that we saw that Marconi worked so much in this particular field later on. I think it's incredibly important that we share. I think it's incredibly important that we have conferences like this, and I would very much like to thank Alex and Konstantin and Dan for allowing me this opportunity to come and talk to you about these things. These kinds of conferences where we can share openly and when we're not being, oh, no, this is proprietary information, I'm not going to tell you anything about it. When we're open in this way, we are going to grow the community. I'd like to end with a little quote here. Inventors compete and innovators cooperate. The American president, Harry Truman, said, it's amazing how much we can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit. And I think that that's really what we need to be thinking about right now. So thank you very much for listening. You've been a great audience, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your conference. Thank you.